There is an old gas station on the outskirts of our town that is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and sometimes longer. If you walk inside, you're likely to see a tired cashier sitting at the front table, trying his best to mind his own business. He is real. You may also see someone else. You may also see something else. If you're curious about the reality of anyone or anything including yourself in this small, ammonia-smelling assemblage of low-quality junk food, flashing lights, dirt, four walls, and a roof, then may I recommend you just walk behind the cashier and go about your business. I've worked at this gas station practically non-stop since I graduated high school, and at this point I doubt I could leave if I wanted to. Not too long ago, my doctor recommended that I start keeping a journal, and after some thought, I decided it was okay to give it a try. It doesn't seem like traditional treatment is having any effect. But enough about me. Let's get back to the interesting stuff. The gas station. I spent a decent chunk of my shift last night trying to decide how I should start this journal. Where do I start that makes any sense? How do I explain this gas station to someone who has never encountered it? I've tried to tell some of my stories before, so I know what to expect. People don't believe it, or don't want to believe. I still remember how hard it was for me last year when I had to call the sheriff's station and explain to the new girl that half a pig had broken into the store and was running back and forth, breaking things and screaming in an old woman's voice. Yeah, I mean half a pig. Yes, the pig. The front half. No, it's not a joke. I'm at a gas station. What do you mean, what gas station? Is this your first day or what? First day? In that case, can I please talk to someone else? Finally, she put me in touch with Tom. He's a deputy who drew the short straw a few years ago and made it to the official position in charge of the gas station. That was even before he went completely gray. Tom has worked here long enough that all I have to say when he picks up the phone is, "There's half a pig in here. She won't stop screaming and I can't catch her." Then he grunts, mumbles something about it all being pretty fucking weird, and rides out to help me catch her. Tom's a good guy. I asked around, but nobody in the neighborhood knew where the pig came from. Farmer Brown, who was still alive at the time, came over to take a look and share his expert opinion. According to Farmer, the pig had somehow been chopped right down the middle, but through some miracle, none of the internal organs were damaged. There was nothing supernatural about it, just very unusual. It stayed at the local elementary school as something of a mascot for the summer, until a scientist and his crew from somewhere up north offered the school $1,000 in exchange for the pig. For science, I guess. I don't want to sound silly, but my point is that it's hard to believe some of these stories unless you've been inside that gas station yourself at least once. And maybe you have. We are the only gas station for miles around. We are close enough to some major crossroads. If you've ever driven in an unfamiliar part of the country and gotten lost, it's not out of the question that you may have ended up at my door with the goal of filling up your tank or finding out the way. If you have a strange memory of a strange place that somehow doesn't fit the setting, there's a chance we've actually met. It was late in the afternoon of my night shift when I decided to start writing. Taking notes on some of my strangest memories of the place, I consciously decided to remove the ones that were so unbelievable that there was no point in wasting anyone else's time on them. I call them try and forget stories. I was writing it all down in my receipt book when Carlos interrupted me. Carlos is one of the temporary workers at the gas station. We have a pretty long list of temporary workers here. The owners like to hire freelancers, hobos, hitchhikers, random passersby, and felons looking for work for a couple days. In fact, I try not to meet them. They come and go after a couple days or sometimes a couple weeks, rarely long enough for any serious relationships to form over it. But there is Carlos, who has been working here for almost a year now. He got a job through the prison labor program, unloading trucks twice a week and being the only one of the 12 inmates who didn't disappear during the terrible snowstorm last December. But that's not really important to me. Carlos served his time, and when he was released, he came to work here again, cleaning the store and unloading trucks. He comes in 6 times a day for all of his 30-minute shifts. There is an old gas station on the outskirts of our town that is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you go inside, you'll see row after row of low-quality chips, cookies, canned goods, and pickles expiration dates on the cans are suspiciously absent, as if these cans were put there years ago in some misguided attempt to keep track of merchandise. A faded wet sign covers a huge crack in the floor, next to the refrigerator, where layers of sticky secretions have formed a miniature tar pit that holds countless insect and small rodent corpses. No one ever complains about the environment here. Through some strange, bordering on paranormal coincidence, the health inspector had been repeatedly silent about this place, graciously ignoring the easily detectable odor of some mysterious chemical cocktail that was always inherent in this establishment. It was even more noticeable than the steady mechanical hum emanating from the cold drink machine that had been installed in the 70s and had never been serviced since. More noticeable than the random pockets of warm and cold air that follow you everywhere, and more annoying than the family of mutated raccoons that lived in the basement right behind the grease trap. At least we think they mutated. Well, or at the very least, they've degenerated into physical ugliness and mental inferiority. Their alpha, a muscular 3-foot-tall son of a bitch named Rocco, has been spotted chewing on other people's tires numerous times, and despite being run over at least twice, he keeps coming back. The persistent odor is a sweet combination of honeysuckle, ammonia, and vomit that has never been clearly identified, but there is a theory that the smell comes from underground, permeating through thin cracks in the concrete that grow and widen each year, due to subsidence in the building structure. It's strongest right after a rainstorm, and becomes pungent to the point of tears if you get too close to the drain, where even Rocco and his clan refuse to set foot. If you go inside, you may, at one point, see a restroom cowboy. He is something of an urban legend here, and only appears if you are alone and unsuspecting. What makes him truly legendary are the stories people tell after such an encounter. The entries about him range from pretty weird to incredibly bizarre. For example, a guy last month who went to the restroom but changed his mind when he saw a cowboy standing next to the urinal, dressed in a duster, bandana, booties, and leather pants, holding a bunch of different balloon animals, where a couple weeks later, another customer walked into the same restroom and saw a man dressed only in a cowboy hat, family shorts and boots with spurs, literally sharpening an axe on an old-fashioned stone sharpener. When he walked in, the cowboy stopped, looked up at him with a smile, lifted his hat and said, "Come on, what have you got there?" If you are lucky enough to see a ghostly cowboy haunting the restroom, don't worry. He's harmless and actually quite polite. Honestly, he's not that bad, especially compared to the other things that happen in this place. Once you're inside this gas station, you might instantly get a toothache. It's a strangely common phenomenon that no one fully understands. The pain goes away on its own after a couple hours. If you actually go inside, you will almost certainly see me sitting behind the counter. The thing is, I'm the only full-time employee, and I'm almost always here. You might notice that I'm reading a book. That's because the internet, for whatever reason, doesn't work here, and cell service is either unreliable or not available at all. If you need to make a call, you can get out and walk up the slope, preferably back toward the direction of town, because the other road will take you into the woods, and you absolutely don't need to know why going there is a bad idea. Or you can pay me 25 cents a minute and use the store phone. This rule was set by the owners, and I need to enforce it because they check the phone printouts. Sorry. While you're here, don't be offended if I don't talk to you, because to be completely honest, I don't always know exactly how real someone who walks through those doors is. And if I had accurate knowledge of everyone in this place who might be a real person, I'd go crazy. And we don't need any more of that here. I guess I'd just like to say that strange things happened to me while working at this seedy gas station on the edge of town. I wish I could tell you about the weirdest things that have ever happened here, but I doubt I'll ever get around to it. There were just too many. I, in total, saw 4 coffins inside the store in 3 different situations. I met at least a dozen people weaving back into town from the woods, claiming they'd escaped from aliens or government conspirators or something like that. They didn't have any money, but they needed to make a phone call, and I could just let them use the store phone before they found them again. But rules are rules, and I'm not going to lose my job just because you escaped captivity without bringing change with you. Then, of course, there's Farmer Brown, yes, that's his real name, who got mad at us and complained about the mixed feed we ordered for him. He claimed there was something wrong with the product because, as he explained, all of his animals suddenly took on human faces. We settled with him, giving him a substantial discount on his next couple of orders. Shortly after that, he stopped coming, and the remains of his body were found in a bedroom of his farmhouse, locked from the inside. As far as I know, this case is still unsolved. Anyway, I can probably still come back with a story or two, but right now I have to get ready for work. Now that I think about it, I'm not quite sure what he does during those shifts. The store is never clean, and the trucks only come twice a week, exclusively during daylight hours, due to an arrangement made as a result of one incident. Maybe one day I'll ask Carlos what kind of work he does. All I know is that of everyone I know here, he's the most like my friend. When Carlos approached me at my workplace last night, I knew something unusual was going on. He was dousing himself with sweat, was pale, and looked like he was about to pass out. He kept looking back at the man in the suit, who had wandered into the store and was standing next to the cold drink machine. Carlos said, "We need to talk." "Go ahead," I answered him. But he refused to say anything until I followed him into the freezer. I usually hate leaving the front of the store unattended. We get the occasional shoplifter. Plus Rocco once snuck in and made off with 2 cartons of cigarettes. But Carlos looked serious, so I made an exception for him. Once we were in the chilling safety of the freezer, Carlos asked me if I'd seen the guy in the suit. I said I had seen him. He asked if I knew the guy. I said I'd seen him around town once. His name was Kiefer. He was running in some election, can't remember exactly which one, and he stopped by the gas station every now and then. He drove an old black SUV that only took premium gasoline. I hadn't heard much about him around town, but he was definitely a local. His picture was on the trophy case at my high school, commemorating one of the competitions he won years before I went there. I guess we had a lot to be proud of. I knew of Kiefer, but we didn't know each other. After I told Carlos all this, he shook his head and said, "No, it can't be Kiefer. It can't be Kiefer, because Kiefer has been dead for 2 days. His body is in the trunk of my car right now." That's when things got really weird. It was a very strange night. Between the plant hands, Farmer Jr., and that cultist who wouldn't leave me alone, I barely managed to get my thoughts together. And of course, on top of all that, there was that Carlos situation. I promise I'll come back and tell you all about it. But first I need to get some coffee.